intensified for the upcoming general election. What does all this mean for you, the voter? What do the candidates have to offer? How prepared are agencies charged with the election process? Join John Kuria and Safina Chieng on Kenya Decides. This and every Tuesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 as we unpack elections 2022 with a panel of various stakeholders. Make informed electoral decisions.
Wewe umelala fofofo. Hata una habari kama huyu ametumwa aje nimalize.
Mimi niwe na wasiwasi. Chief Puka the Great Kahindi.
Na niwe mimi kusaidia wewe mspider mwangu. Wewe una wasimu.
Machozi ya samaki hayafai chochote hapa. Sikutaki kwangu. Nishakwambia.
Kama anda kwa laba hata ni heri shopping yako mregeshe mwenye duka, manake huko pia hayuko.
Umejuaje?
Good afternoon. Welcome to this live broadcast of the Senate proceedings on this 14th day of June 2022. This broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The broadcast is available on Senate TV, on KBC Channel 1, as well as YouTube, courtesy of the Parliament of Kenya YouTube channel. This afternoon, the Chairperson Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare will present in the Senate the report of the Standing Committee on a petition to the Senate concerning the recruitment and remuneration of early childhood development education teachers in Nyamira and Uasin Gishu counties. There are chairpersons of different sessional and standing committees who will lay on the table of the Senate various reports. Among them, the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 on variation of public debt ceiling. This paper will be laid on the table of the Senate by the Chairperson, Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industrialization will lay on the table of the Senate the report of the Committee on the Sacco Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2021. The Senate Majority Leader will lay on the table of the Senate the annual report and financial statements for the Capital Markets Authority for the financial year 2020-2021. The Vice Chairperson, Procedure and Rules Committee will lay on the table of the Senate the fourth report of the Procedure and Rules Committee on the review of the standing orders of the Senate. This afternoon, there will be a debate on the County Government Additional Allocation Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2022. The debate on this was interrupted on 8th June 2022, and thereafter there will be a division. The Chairperson Standing Committee on Finance and Budget will move a motion on the adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on the County Government's Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 and approval of the County Government's Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2021-2022. Thereafter, the Chairperson Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation will move a motion on the approval of the revised debt ceiling for the national government, that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on the consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations, legal notice number 89 of 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 14th June 2022, and that pursuant to the provisions of Section 56 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Senate approves the amendments to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations of 2015 Principal Regulations. If you're just joining us, the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Mokele Lusaka, has walked into the chambers, and now I will hand you over for this live broadcast.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting teachers and history students from Patterson Memorial Secondary School in Kajiado County who are on an academic trip. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity you have given me to actually join you in welcoming students from Kajiado County. And indeed, this is a very opportune moment for an academic trip. I know there are so many students in this republic who have never even related with the parliamentary wing or the legislative wing of the government, but their coming here will be memorable to them. And Honorable Speaker, I would like to let the students know that when it comes to the Senate, it plays a major role in terms of being part of the legislative wing of the Parliament. Now, Parliament constitutes of the National Assembly and the Senate. And when it comes to the Senate, it has a salient role in ensuring that it is representing the counties and the interests of the counties. And this means that even the county of Kajiado is also represented here ably by the senators who are here. And I'd like the students to know that when it comes to whether it is legislative whether it is personal, whether it is representation and all that, the Senate is usually very key in ensuring that the service delivery in the counties. And Honorable Speaker, I would like the students to also know that when it comes to allocation of money, the Senate plays a major role in ensuring that money is disbursed to the counties so that everyone has service delivery and so that every citizen is able to enjoy Article 43 of this Constitution that entails getting highest attainable standards of health, clean water, education, and everything, Honorable Speaker. So I want to tell the students that their being here is very important, and they should also know that the Senate plays a major role in ensuring that bills are passed. And the bills that the Senate passes are bills that help common wananchi, and that is our business. So I want to tell you, students, that when you go back to your school, just know that when you elect senators to come to the Senate, you are actually exercising your role as a citizen to ensure that you are represented in the Senate, so that your interests are represented, so that your wants are represented as a citizen of this country. So I want to wish the students a good time when they're here, as they engage with the Senate, as they see how we come up with laws. And also, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank even the teachers for ensuring that both boys and girls are here, because we encourage that both boys and girls must have an education, because education is very important in terms of leading a country, in terms of ensuring that you are being a leader. So I want to tell you, students, work hard in your academics, and as you work hard in your academics, I know that some of you are aspiring to be here, and yes, it is possible for you to be here. Once upon a time, we were where you were, and we had a vision of being here, and that is why we are here. So have your vision burning, and at the right time, you'll find yourselves here. You'll find yourselves also in government positions so that you are able to lead this country to greater heights. Welcome, and thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity.
Senator Masinza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join you into welcoming a student from Kajiado County. I didn't get the school very well, but I know it's from Kajiado County. And I just want to tell the student that, and the teachers, that you are most welcome to come and visit us, our House of Senate. We are a house of respect, and I know most of you will admire to be here. I know this time round you might be seeing empty seats, but you understand, because you are in Kenya and it's a campaign in a campaign period, whereby most of the members are in the campaign mode, and they are out there in the field trying to protect their seats, trying to campaign, and because the campaign period has begun, most of them are there. So, and we make efforts, some of us, we make efforts of coming here so that the house business can continue. But feel most welcomed, and I know many will admire to come here. When you grow up, I want to urge you to continue with the education, especially the student ladies who are there. You see, we are here and we are representing our countries. I want to urge all of you, including the student, boy student, that this house is open for Kenyans, and it's a house that makes laws, legislative laws, especially when we are exercising our mandate. And also the matters of protecting our counties, where the schools, your schools are in. And we just want to urge you, if you are disciplined enough, and if you are good enough, and you are looking forward to make your life easier, please cooperate with your teachers, work hard in your studies, and when you end up here, you'll be more disciplined. You'll come up with the legislative that will guide this country, and bills that will guide these countries, policies that will guide these countries, and you'll enjoy staying in Kenya and making Kenya a good country for you. Thank you very much, teachers, again, and students. Welcome again and again, even in the coming Senate that will be there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I congratulate the students and teachers. Asante.
Thank you so much. Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable Senators, I have a message approval of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 1 of 2022. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order number 41.3 and 4 of the Senate, I have received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2022. Pursuant to the said standing order, I now report the message, and I quote, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 41.1 and 144 of the National Assembly standing orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 1 of 2022, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 64 of 2022 as a special bill concerning county governments to provide in earlier for the equitable allocation of revenue raised nationally among the county governments for the 2022-2023 financial year, whereas the said bill was passed by the Senate on Wednesday, 8th June 2022 and referred to the National Assembly for consideration in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution, and whereas the National Assembly also passed the said bill on Thursday, 9th June 2022 without amendments in the form passed by the Senate, now therefore in accordance with the provisions of Article 110 of the Constitution and Standing Orders number 41.1 and 144 of the National Assembly standing orders, I hereby convey the said decision of the National Assembly to the Senate. Honorable Senators, consequently, I am in the process of transmitting the bill to His Excellency the President for assent. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions.
We have a petition by Committee on Labor. Chair or a member from that committee. Chionga, you look like you belong to the committee. You approach the
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following petition report on the table of the Senate today, 14th June 2022. The report of the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare on a petition to the Senate concerning the recruitment and remuneration of early childhood development education, ECDE teachers in Nyamira and Uasin Gishu counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On behalf of the chair, I beg to lay.
next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of majority.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, the 14th June 2022. Report of the Standing Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industrialization on the SACCO Societies Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 55 of 2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 14th June 2022. Annual report and financial statements for Capital Markets Authority for the financial year 2020-2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Faki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 14th of June, 2022. Report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations, Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 on variation of the public debt ceiling. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on the consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations, Legal Notice number 89 of 2022, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 14th of June, 2022, and that pursuant to the provisions of Section 50, subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Senate approved the amendments to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations 2015 Principal Regulations as effected through Legal Notice number 89 of 2022, thus varying the public debt ceiling to an amount not exceeding 10 trillion Kenya shillings. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Falhada. Chair, Roads and Transportation. A member of the committee, Vice Chair.
Okay, I'll reschedule the paper. For the convenience of the House, we'll skip order number 8 and go to order number 9. Senator Faria.
Order number 9, motion. Adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government's additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 and approval of the county government's additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022.
I call Senator Faria. That's order number 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity. Pursuant to Section 17, subsection 6 and 7 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the county government's cash Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 and approve the county additional allocation cash disbursement. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Section 17, 6 and 7 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, the county government cash disbursement schedule is submitted to the Senate by the National Treasury. The cash disbursement schedule ensures predictable and timely money transfer and flow of funds to the respective county revenue fund. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, it enables the counties to undertake crucial functions in the delivery of services to the citizens. Mr. Speaker, sir, the county government additional allocation cash disbursement schedule is the key Senate resolution to operationalize the release and transfer of approved allocations as per the annual cash additional allocation Act 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, the additional cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 was submitted to the Senate by the National Treasury pursuant to Section 17 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and tabled in the Senate on 19th May 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, upon tabling, the schedule was committed to the Standing Committee of Finance and Budget for consideration and subsequently reporting back to the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, the schedule outlines the additional allocation finance from the national government share of revenue to county government for the financial year 2021-2022 amounting to 332 million, excluding 7.2 billion for leasing medical equipment. Mr. Speaker, sir, the schedule contains the disbursement of the supplement for the construction of county headquarters to the eligible 5 county government. The counties receiving the supplement for the construction of headquarters are Isiolo, 68 million, Lamu, 38 million, Nyandarua, Kenya shilling 75 million, Tana River, Kenya shilling 75 million, and Tharaka Nithi, Kenya shilling 76 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, the second schedule outlines the disbursement of additional allocation from the proceeds of loans and grants and the development partners totaling to 27.74 billion. The allocation comprises of additional conditional allocation financed by World Bank to finance the Transforming Health System for Universal Healthcare project amounting to 2.234 billion. And B, additional conditional allocation financed by World Bank credit to finance the National Agriculture and Rural Inclusive Growth Project amounting to Kenya shilling 6.395 billion. 3, additional allocation financed by World Bank to finance the Climate Change Smart Agriculture Project amounting to 7.838 billion. Additional allocation from European Union grant to finance instrument to devolution advice and support amounting to 230 million. Another grant, additional allocation from World Bank million. Additional conditional allocation by Danida grant to finance the primary health care in devolved context amounting to 701 million. Additional conditional allocations financed by the government of Sweden to finance the agriculture sector development support program 2 amounting to 1.3 billion. And additional conditional allocation financed by German Development Bank to finance the drought resilience program in northern Kenya amounting to 370 million. And then the next allocation is additional conditional allocation financed by World Bank to finance the emergency locust response project amounting to 800 million. And then additional conditional allocations financed by World Bank to finance the Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Project 2 amounting to 2.8 billion. And finally, the additional conditional allocation financed by United Nations Fund for Population Activities amounting to 23 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is proposed that the allocation to the counties to be disbursed between the month of May and June as outlined in the schedule. I'm sure this as you can understand, because of the delay in processing this bill between us and National Assembly, I'm sure everybody understands the history, and as a result there was a delay. And then, Mr. Speaker, during the consideration of the cash disbursement schedule, the committee observed that the cash disbursement schedule for the additional allocation to counties is being considered in May, and yet the schedule indicates they were disbursed to be made by 15th May. The committee recommends that the county, number one, that the county allocation cash disbursement schedule be approved as tabled on 19th May 2022, noting that the time remaining of the financial year is less than a month. The Treasury, the National Treasury should fast track the disbursement of exchequer issues provided in the Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I conclude, the committee acknowledges the contribution of the stakeholders who ensured the cash grant additional allocation Act 2022 was approved and consequently smoothly executed by the county government budget. I appreciate and thank the members of the committee for their patience, sacrifice, and commitment to the assigned task within the stipulated time. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank the secretariat who are always, helpful to ensure that the committees, function successfully. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Senator Faki to second.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesimama hapa kuunga mkono ripoti ya kamati ya fedha ambayo imewasilishwa katika bunge la Senate mchana wa leo na Senator Farhia ambaye ni mwanachama wa kamati hiyo. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Honorable Senators, I propose a question which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the County Government's Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 and approval of the County Government's Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement. Disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022 laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 8th June 2022, and that pursuant to sections 17.7 of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order number 1833, the Senate approves the county government's additional allocation cash disbursement schedule for financial year 2021-2022. I don't see any interest. I call upon the mover to reply. Oh, so, Consider Chararge. I can only know there's interest when I see.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I've seen in the order paper there is the shared schedule, allocations from the Equalization Fund for the marginalized areas for the financial year 2022-2023, and there is a cash disbursement, Mr. Speaker, that has been given. I can see Nandi stands to benefit up to tune of around 158 million to 200 million. And I think, Mr. Speaker, as we do this cash disbursement, I know counties are closing down at the moment, or they are not closing down, they are existing in perpetuity, Mr. Speaker, and it is important that we need to process this because, you know, counties cannot move at the moment because they need those resources. But I hope as we push for cash disbursement schedule, has been moved by our Deputy Chief Whip, is that we don't expect this money to be misused, especially at this last time. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that some governors who are incumbent and they are defending their seats, that they can go and use this money to brand county vehicles. I saw a governor who is running for senator from Northeastern branding 103 vehicles using county resources, and we were shocked as a country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I know Senator Faria might be aware of such governor because she comes from that region. We are pushing this cash disbursement, Mr. Speaker, because the schools are on. We want our children to be issued with bursary, Mr. Speaker. We want our roads to be made, especially where I come from. This is the rainy season. Our farmers cannot take their milk, cannot take their products and produce to the market because of the poor states of the roads, Mr. Speaker. So this is a warning to incumbent governors, and I hope IBC is watching, that no incumbent governor should be allowed to fund any political activities, Mr. Speaker, from the either side. And we hope that the necessary agencies, and even as we come to the synodai of the Senate, and as the third generation of Senate comes into place, these are some of the issues, Mr. Speaker, because I've sat in CPAC, and you know what they're telling us, Mr. Speaker? When a governor appears, they tell you, oh, you know, we didn't collect on-source revenue because it was a political year. We are aware of those monkey businesses, Mr. Speaker. You cannot tell me Kenyans are not paying now taxes, that they are not paying cess, that they are not paying any levies, fees. When governors appear in 2023 before CPAC, they tell you that that year the revenue went down, all source revenue, because at that time there was political activity. But when you go even around this city and even in Kapsabet, Kenyans are paying for those levies. They are paying for those cess. They are paying for the money. Why is it that when it comes, the governors find it conveniently and say that, Mr. Speaker, that the money, that the on-source revenue went down, Mr. Speaker, because of political activity? I think as a Senate we must refuse such explanation, Mr. Speaker. We have never had that explanation from the national government when they appear before our system, National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So that is my point number 2. Point number 3, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, is that let us, I know there are governors who are serving their second and final term, Mr. Speaker, when their audit reports are not ready. And they are now the ones spending this cash disbursement that we are passing today, Mr. Speaker. We need to ensure that the Auditor General, the Controller of Budget, the EACC, and other agencies must be on the lookout, so that as the people, we don't want legacy projects of individuals to be part of looting the county away. There are people who are second-term governors, Mr. Speaker, that they imagine that since they are serving their second and final term, they don't owe anybody any duty, Mr. Speaker. So even as I was reluctant in the passage of this cash disbursement, to be honest, Mr. Speaker, is because we are not sure where it will go. That is our worry, Mr. Speaker. Because we know, I'm told even some governors are using the cash disbursement that we are giving them to fund their own political parties plus their candidates. And we know governors who own political parties. And I know Majority Leader, his governor has a political party, Mr. Speaker, and is using the same cash disbursement that we are giving. How can you brand a government vehicle? An IBC sitting on the job, Mr. Speaker. How can you brand a vehicle that is supposed to belong to county, Mr. Speaker? I know also where you come from, your own county. Even Bungoma, we are facing similar challenges, where even governors are threatening the employees and telling them, I will not pay you salary if you don't vote for me. Mr. Speaker, we need to protect our people. Where I come from, because my governor, some of the employees, a number of them, did not support him during nomination, he has stopped the salary for them, Mr. Speaker. Where are we going as a nation, Mr. Speaker? There are many threats from governors, especially who are incumbent and who own political parties, that they are using the money that we are giving here, the money that belongs to our people, Mr. Speaker, to use for political campaigns, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you want to use money, can you fundraise? The law allows you to fundraise as a candidate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the IBC and other agencies must be on the lookout on misuse and abuse of public resources to be used for the campaign, Mr. Speaker. Let our children get bursary. Let our children get medicine, Mr. Speaker. Now, in fact, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude on this, is when you go to most hospitals, there are no drugs. The ambulances are grounded. It's like during campaign season, the county employees and the governors are given them memo to leave their offices and go and campaign for the governor. Even some of the employees within county governments, even in nomination, some of them were POs and ROs. Yet there is no medicine, Mr. Speaker, in the hospital. Yet there is no drugs in hospital. Yes, there is no bursary, Mr. Speaker. Yet there are no roads. And somebody somewhere is using resources, Mr. Speaker. They must be flagged out, because by the time you take a county vehicle, put the fuel card, Mr. Speaker, at a petrol station, and use that vehicle to campaign. Mr. Speaker, when I saw that governor from Northeastern, Mr. Speaker, branding 103 vehicles, including that belong to the county assembly, Mr. Speaker, we cannot sit and allow this to happen. And if IBC was functional and DCI, they should have ensured that such governors must be held accountable and even be removed from running for any office, Mr. Speaker. Because I can see here in Milimani, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, the people that the IBC have refused them to run, some of them are being accused for misusing and abusing the county resources, Mr. Speaker. So I want to really appeal, Mr. Speaker, even as we go and as politicians who hold offices, if you have any government vehicle, you are exposed to government resources, Mr. Speaker, kindly, you might find it conveniently to use those county resources now, and even national resources. But I owe unto you from 10 August, Mr. Speaker, and you know the Article 2265, Mr. Speaker, of the Constitution brings what we call personal liability. I want also to challenge my colleagues in leadership that even as you have those offices and vehicles that belong to the Senate and the Parliament of Kenya, be careful, don't use it in campaigns, because you might use it conveniently now, but you will be accountable in future. I think that is what I'm appealing, Mr. Speaker. I'm not saying it in bad faith, but we must set an example, Mr. Speaker, as a house, that you can use your own resources without necessarily misusing and abusing the state resources. And I can see the House leadership is in concurrence with me, my sister, the Deputy Speaker, Deputy Chief Whip, and Majority Leader. Everybody is in concurrence that let us not abuse and misuse the public resources. And I hope it goes to the government officials, it goes also to the governors and people who hold offices in this republic, executive offices that we have, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much, and I will think about it, about this motion, Mr. Speaker, because it is half-hearted, because I don't know this money can be used to finish some of us politically, and yet we are busy, Mr. Speaker. That's the worst. Nowadays, Mr. Speaker, you pass the money, when you go to the village, they have hired hecklers to heckle you. So it is also sad. I am sad. I don't know, unless Majority Leader will convince me otherwise. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, you may use this time to convince your neighbor.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity, not just to respond to my neighbor, but to contribute to the debate on the additional allocations cash disbursement schedule for the financial year 2021-2022. I want to thank Senator Farhia, who has ably moved it, and Senator Faki for seconding. And Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to assure our colleagues that this is a very important document, a very important bill for us to be able to send monies to our counties, monies which are not part of the CARA. These are additional monies. These are conditional grants. These are grants from other sources, and they are good for the county. The good thing, which I think Senator Cherake could probably think about, is that these have specific functions, and they are sent to do specific functions. For example, Mr. Speaker, some of those counties who have county headquarters to build, like Isiolo, Lamu, Nyandarua, Tana River, Tharaka Nithi, Mr. Speaker, those monies are specifically for building county headquarters. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, we also need to realize that the equalization fund has specific functions, because equalization funds, the Speaker, will go directly to the areas of operation. Even within the county, they will go down to sublocations where they are required. And so, Mr. Speaker, I do suggest that we approve this particular bill. Let's approve this document, this report, Mr. Speaker, and give it priority, because the monies are overdue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to allay fears about the governors. I want to allay the fears, Mr. Speaker, and suggest that maybe those governors who are waiting to use these monies for elections and so on, Mr. Speaker, will not get the opportunity to do so, partly because, Mr. Speaker, processes take time, elections are coming, and everybody now is careful, Mr. Speaker. And so I hope that they will not be able to access the funds for their own. And I think, and I agree with the senator who has said the constitutional organs of this country, including IEBC, need to be on the lookout for any of this business that some of them are waiting for. Some of them want to give themselves their own retirement benefits. Mr. Speaker, they already have those budgeted for. And I think that the concerns of the members, I just want us to ask that the members do proceed to vote for this, because I know very soon we'll do another disbursement schedule. And so we will worry about that a bit, but this one is specific for particular functions.
What's your point of order, Senator Olekina?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm a stickler to details, and I'm looking at what has been presented to us to be able to debate here, and I'm not seeing a schedule that shows the amount of money which is supposed to be going to counties. Now, when I look at, Charalge, if you listen, maybe you'll learn something. I don't just stand up for the sake of it. If you look at the supplementary order paper, Mr. Speaker, when on page 1332, there's a schedule which is listed there. And in this schedule, which is listed there, I have never seen, Mr. Speaker, where we talk about, we give a title, and it says conditional allocation to county governments from national government revenue in financial year 2022-2023. Now, first of all, Mr. Speaker, that title is misleading, because that title for that bill was changed. it was indicated that it's additional allocation, not conditional allocation.
I'm told there's one copy which they are running, so that should be addressed. The problem
No,
that you're
but
raising.
as we address that, Mr. Speaker, there are a couple of things that I want clarified. Number one, this table here shows figures for 2 financial years. It shows figures for 2021, 2022, and it shows figures for 2022, 2023. I'm reading mischief here because we only have about 15 days to the end of the financial year. Do we expect this money to go to the counties within the next 15 days? Or is this money being bundled up to be sent in the next financial year? Which in this case, if you listen to the submissions which are being made by my colleague, Senator Gerald Gay, then of course the children will not benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, can we then be can this be made clearer? And I know, Majority Leader, you want to be able to rush these things and we get done with it, which I completely agree. But as we are doing it, can we debate issues that have the correct title? That is number one. Because this is the supplementary order paper, number 43 of Tuesday, 14th June 2022. It is not indicating, it has got the wrong title. So before we proceed on, Mr. Speaker, on this debate, can we correct that? Can the Majority Leader, who is the mover of this, clarify this? Or, we need to know, because here I'm seeing the amount of money which is supposed to go to Narok and Kajiado is a certain amount. But it's how sure am I that this money will go during this financial year, or it will be bundled up for the next financial year? So, Mr. Speaker, before we proceed further, if that can be clarified, I'd be very happy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, I think what you are raising is different. Just a minute. No, what is being discussed is different from what you are raising. Okay, yes, okay, come. Okay, proceed. We are working out some logistics.
Mr. Speaker, I think that everything will be fine, and my colleague Olekina will be patient enough for us to give him, be patient enough for him to get the right information. I'm only saying he should be patient enough. He doesn't look very patient at the moment. Mr. Speaker, let me just proceed and say I was busy congratulating and saying these funds, when they come, these funds, of course, it's disconcerting, Mr. Speaker, to know, as has been raised, and I don't know how much of that is correct, Mr. Speaker, that some of the governors are using resources which are county resources at this moment for campaigning. And Mr. Speaker, if they are doing that, again, there are many constitutional officers and organs who are watching. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that they will be able to reach out and deal with those governors. I know already they're watching members of Parliament very, very closely, Mr. Speaker. So they should watch everybody, including the governors, very, very carefully.
What's your point of order, Senator Shiongo?
As my colleague is saying, the leader is saying that organs are watching. For how long are these organs working, and for how long have they been watching when these funds are being destroyed, taken, misused, and Kenyans are suffering. Please, let us, if those organs are useless, let us just say they're useless and they're working in a more useless way, because they have been working.
Order, Senator Shionga.
You know, it is so sad. It is sad.
Honorable Senators, I think we're engaging in allegations that have no basis. So let's not discuss, because we don't have any evidence that any governor has used money, county government money to campaign. So why are we escalating something that we don't have evidence on?
Mr. Speaker, everyone is going to have their chance to speak to this particular report, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, let me just assure the Honourable Senator that if you like to make a contribution, just make a contribution. Because there was nothing out of order in my presentation in that case. Mr. Speaker, let me allay the fears, because the financial year is coming to an end. And that's what I was saying, Mr. Speaker. Financial year is coming to an end in a few days. And therefore, those who fear that this money will be misused, Mr. Speaker, have to realize there will be no money disbursed after the financial year is gone. So we are hoping that money, all of it, if they are for one financial year or two, they will all be safe. It will all be safe, and then it will be used properly when you are either governor or senator in the next dispensation. And so I do support the Speaker and ask members that we actually vote for this particular document, support it, so that monies can be disbursed for additional allocations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina, are you comfortable, or you want to read the document? I give somebody else, then you come when you have read? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. And from the onset, I'd like to support this motion on the adoption of on the report on the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the County Government Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for the financial year 2021-2022. But before, Mr. Speaker, I give my submissions, I'd like to recognize young students from Kajiado and encourage them, and I like the teacher that they were able to bring them to the Senate to be able to see kind of the things that we discuss here. Mr. Speaker, the students whom I hope that after this submission I'll be able to meet up with them and talk to them in detail, have an opportunity to be able to defend this country. Mr. Speaker, we are all Christians or Muslims in this House. And if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's the one.
Ecclesiastes.
It talks about vanity. And it also talks about, where the preacher was talking about David, it talks about generations, that this generation will come and go, another generation comes and go, but this world remains. Currently, Mr. Speaker, these students are alive to the fact that the Maasais of Tanzania, who have their relatives in Kenya, are actually right now being terrorized, stigmatized, extremist measures, and their existence is actually in jeopardy. Yet we talk about having the East African community. Mr. Speaker, for the last 7 days I've been lobbying, people from different countries, our neighboring countries, because we talk about having the East African community. What is the point of us having the East African community when our neighbors, our relatives are crying and we continue pretending that we don't know the challenges they are facing? So, Mr. Speaker, these students,
what's the point of order, Senator?
Wish you could just allow me to.
Mr. Speaker, on the point of order of relevance, Senator Ledamo Olekina is one of the best senators on this floor. And I thought if he wanted to discuss, and I empathize and sympathize what is happening in Tanzania against the Tanzanian Maasais, I thought he can move a motion of adjournment so that we can discuss such crisis. But now we are just discussing about cash disbursement. I sympathize and empathize with you, but on the point of relevance, and he's my friend, please, on the point of relevance, Mr. Speaker.
True. Stick to
Mr. Speaker,
what is
I will stick to relevance when relevance demands that I stick to relevance. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I did mention, I gave a disclaimer that I will contribute to the cash disbursement schedule. But the first thing is to talk to the young people, the young men and women who are seated in this parliament, to be able to understand some of the things that we do here. And I think I was in the middle of my submissions, and my colleague from the other side of the aisle should have been patient enough to listen to what I'm saying. The young men and women who are here, we are a different generation. We want to be able to leave this country a better place than we found it. When we are gone, and the fact that they're young, they will be able to also contribute to this country. Mr. Speaker, earlier on, my colleague was talking about the dangers of this cash being dispersed and governors misappropriating these funds. I think, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, my colleague should have been patient enough to be able to understand where my line of thoughts are. So, Mr. Speaker, as I continue to contribute to this matter, I want to continue reiterating on the importance of the East African community, because every cent or dollar that we contribute, that we send to counties, it does work that can benefit the East African community. The amount of money that we are talking about here, Mr. Speaker, if I can be very specific, these are additional allocation of funds that are supposed to assist hospitals, they are supposed to assist roads. Mr. Speaker, there are roads and hospitals that ought to be built, level 4 and level 5, in a place like Loita, Mr. Speaker, in a place like Niagara, Mr. Speaker, which is the border of Kenya and Tanzania, and also in a place like Namanga, which is the border of Kenya and Tanzania. So when we have an unrest between the two, either in Tanzania or in Kenya, it will affect. It is not a secret, Mr. Speaker, that people from Tanzania cross to Kenya to be treated. Neither is it a secret or false that Kenyans do cross the border to Tanzania to be treated. So when I raise the concern of our people being stigmatized, extremist measures, when we have 31 people, Mr. Speaker, we're talking about conditional allocation. This money, which is an additional allocation, specifically if you look at the figures that have been given to Narok, that money is for hospitals, is for roads. If we have an unrest or we have a situation where our colleagues, or rather our brothers and sisters, because we cannot hide from the fact that some of us migrated from Tanzania and moved into this country, if they are suffering there, it is an issue that all of us should know and should be concerned about. So, Mr. Speaker, as I proceed, I want to encourage the young men and women and their teacher to pay attention to what is happening, even in the debate in this House. Because today, we are talking about sending money, additional allocation. First of all, there's a genesis as to why the bill was converted to additional allocation. And I think my good friend from the other side of the aisle would benefit when I tell him that when it was conditional grants, the county governments were saying that the Senate does not have any mandate to be able to oversight on that money. So the issue that I'm raising here are issues which are pertinent. Because, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about allocation of revenue to counties, this year we are discussing about money that will be sent to county governments for next financial year. But it's a bit hypocritical for us to discuss additional allocation that is going on this year. That money should have been dispersed in the first quarter. Because the amount of money that we're talking about right now, it's almost about 600. I'll give you the figures for that.
There's a point of intervention, Senator Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to clarify to Senator Fonarok, Senator Olekina, that this cash disbursement schedule is for the current financial year and not next financial year. And additional grants can be in two folds, conditional and unconditional, both of them. I mean, it carries both. So that's why it's called additional grants, whether it's conditional or unconditional. When it is given by donors, it's conditional. And when it is not, is given a grant by sometimes as a share of the national government share of revenue, then it's an unconditional grant. So that is and the combination of two is additional grant. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague from the other side did not really have anything to clarify, because I think I was very clear that my concern is one. Right now, we are discussing about sending money to county governments when the financial year has lapsed. The majority leader just said the financial year is coming to an end in a few days. So what I'm talking about is that I'm giving a very clear comparison in terms of when we talked about the revenue that was being sent to the county governments. If you look at what is in the order paper, it's for the financial year 2022-2023. But for the additional allocation, I said it's a bit hypocritical for us because this House and the National Assembly, involved in their own sibling rivalry, it took a very long time to be able to agree on a particular way to name the bill. So really, these are facts. And it's important that people understand that this money, which we are now talking about, sending the money to the county governments, may not even benefit the county. If you now bring in the argument and say that these are conditional grants are very specific. They are conditioned. And they are given on a drawdown system. They must be spent in a particular financial year. So no wonder, if you look at, and I'll invite you to look at the order paper for today, and that is what I sought clarity in the beginning. When you look at the order paper today, it gives a table, and it says conditional allocation. It gives a table for 2 financial years. That is taking about 1 billion shillings to Narok County. So that would be money that should have been sent this year and money which is now going to be sent next year. So I think it is imperative that for us now to be a little bit cognizant of the fact that the way we dilly-dally, the amount of time we waste in agreeing, in passing legislation, affects how projects are done on the ground. So, Mr. Speaker, it is my prayer that Treasury will find it in their heart to disperse this money before the financial year is over. And if they do disperse that money, I hope that I share the same sentiments as my colleagues, that the county governors should spend this money in a way that is supposed to benefit everybody. So, Mr. Speaker, the money that we're talking about here should have paid for hospitals. Every senator who comes here talks about, or the stories we hear on the ground, or even when we go to the Senate, to the hospitals, they are not drugs, the hospitals are not built, level 2. The money which is being sent to Narok, if I'm able to read this, for Narok County, Mr. Speaker, there's the NIDA funds of about 17 million. There is Sweden ASDSP2, which is 30 million. There's UNEPA, I cannot even see it, UNEP, which is about 7 million. The other money is on devolution support program, which is about 398 million. This money, Mr. Speaker, in reality may not be consumed during this financial year. I do hope that if the money is either held in the county revenue fund when Treasury disperses this money, and maybe then at that particular time the condition given by the donor agencies would not have lapsed or would have met, I hope that the new governments coming in, and Mr. Speaker, this applies to you as well, in a different way. If God is kind enough to make you the new governor of Bungoma, we hope that at least this money, because there is no way that this money is going to be spent by the current governors. This money is going to be spent by the new governors coming in. So whichever way, because I know my colleagues are afraid that the governors are going to spend this money to be able to campaign. Let them do it. Even if they do it, I think Kenyans who are suffering now, who have got no drugs in the hospitals, who have got no good roads, should ask themselves one question. Should we continue getting all these handouts that we are getting? Or should we question where the source of these funds are coming? Because people will continue suffering. And I think unless you are beaten, unless you have been caused to bleed, there is no way you are going to be able to, in Masai to say, what do you call it? I'll remember it. It said you have to, I will translate.
Order, Senator.
Unless you are made to suffer. Mr. Speaker, the standing orders allow for me to use a phrase and translate it. It's allowed. So,
which standing order is this?
If you don't know your standing order as majority leader, allow me to take the standing order and I'll tell you the exact order. What
just admit you don't know it overhead so that we proceed, Senator Olekina. Yes.
Me, when I know something is true, I'll say it. If we know, I will not withdraw that, Mr. Speaker, because you use a phrase and you translate it. And I'm sure the clerk is nodding because it is true. The standing order that talks about the language that the senator begins debating shall continue with that language to the end. So really, to get back to the other very, very important things that we're talking about, I want to reiterate on the importance of these additional...
What's your point of order, Senator Cherargei?
Under standing order... Under standing order 87, Mr. Speaker, it says all proceedings of the Senate shall be conducted in Kiswahili, English, or in Kenyan Sign Language. Sub-article 2, Mr. Speaker, sir, as senator, and I think Senator Ledama should be listening carefully, because we don't want him to come as a second-term senator and these things escape from him. It says, a senator who begins a speech in any of the languages provided for under paragraph 1 shall continue in the same language until the conclusion of the senator's speech. So, Mr. Speaker, I request that Senator Ledama Olekina withdraws that phrase and apologizes to the House because it contravenes standing order number 87, Mr. Speaker. He cannot mislead the nation and the House, and more so his students from his county, by telling them that you can say in this language, then you switch, and then you translate. It does not exist in the standing orders, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
Senator,
Speaker,
which standing order are you quoting?
Mr. Speaker, this House is a House that relies on record. It is a House that precedents are set. I have sat here, Mr. Speaker, when the other distinguished senators have used the phrase and translated it.
Is it a standing order?
It is in the standing order.
Which one?
If you cannot read it, you can actually be able. If you give me a few minutes, I'll be able to. Give me 24 hours. Give me 24 hours and I'll come back with it. But what I was saying is that in the Maasai, we have a saying that says, which means, that is the word, what I said, which means, Mr. Speaker, that unless you inflicted some wounds and pains, you will never listen. So Kenyans out there ought to make the right decision. We are sending a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, look at this Senate today. The people who are here and also the people who are online are people, they are pastoralists who want money to be sent to them. You know, we have, I'm glad we have Cherargei here. We have pastoralists who are here, and I'm one of them, of course. And we want money to be sent for our hospital. And also we have the people from the coast region, which they are also our brothers. You know, we want them to be able to get this money. The blue economy, that's a blue economy, that's different. So, to be able to summarize my submissions, Mr. Speaker, I do hope that Treasury will be able to expedite, because this is not a bill that needs to go back to the National Assembly. This is something that goes straight to the President to be ascended to. This money can really help. And if this money is not dispersed this year, Mr. Speaker, sir, we've got colleagues here who are running to become governors. You know, Dr. Ali, we wish you all the best. The Speaker, we wish you all the best. When you get there, use the money wisely. Finally, I just want to still call upon all the presidents of the East African community to not to give a blind eye in what is happening in Tanzania right now with the Maasais. That is something that will continue entrenching colonial tendencies into this country. And we cannot allow. We have got to respect communities. We've got to ensure that even if I have land and you don't have.
Senator,
you know, this is something very painful. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator, we empathize and sympathize with our brothers there. But let's, like you said, Ecclesiastes, there's time for everything. No, because you are being irrelevant, Honorable Senator Olekina, with due respect. You don't have to finish, because it is not. You are being irrelevant as per our standing orders. Senator Musurube, your time is up, Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And I must confess that when Senator Olekina was speaking on the floor of this House, I actually got confused because I thought we were looking at the motion that Senator Faria brought on the floor of this House, is it? And it was very clear that the money was to be disbursed to 5 counties, that is Isiolo, Lamu, Nyandarua, Tana River, and Tharaka Nithi. That is what I heard the Senator. And one more. Yes, so the counties were very specific. It was not the 47 counties. And it was the 47 counties.
Point of intervention, Senator Cherargei?
Honorable Speaker, I think there's something Senator Faria wants to explain.
Is on the floor. It's a point of order.
Just, Mr. Speaker, so that you know what Senator Ledama has done is not good for the Senate. And it is important that we set the record straight. Because when you look at our standing orders, because we don't want to run afoul with our neighboring countries, when you look at standing order number 96, it talks about the content of speeches. Neither the personal conduct of the president, nor the conduct of the speaker or any judge, nor the judicial conduct of any other person performing judicial functions, nor any other conduct of the head of state or government. We are discussing the Tanzanian government and the representative in Kenya or any of friendly country, or the conduct of the holder of an office whose removal from such is dependent on decision of the Senate shall be referred to adversely, except upon specific substantive motion of which at least 3 days notice has been given. So I think so that I know the Tanzanian government is watching, and in our relationship for you serving as a senior civil servant in this republic, it is not fair to discuss the issues of another country before this floor, before there is a proper motion. And therefore it is important that we set the record straight, Mr. Speaker, so that our Tanzanian brothers and sisters do not imagine that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya were in any way having a discussion on the situation in Tanzania without a proper motion before this House, Mr. Speaker. So I really wanted to underscore your ruling and support what you have just indicated, that the standing orders of the Senate has provided a clear and crystal clear processes on which we empathize and sympathize what is happening with the Maasais of Tanzania. But there is a proper channel on how those issues can be handled and it be discussed at a different level, Mr. Speaker. So I wish Senator Ledama will take the answer and not go that direction.
No, I think it's been overtaken by events. It was something he mentioned in passing and I stopped him. So I think let's proceed. There's a point of order, Senator Ali.
The same light, Senator Cherargei should not have discussed that when the senator concerned has already left. So he's also out of order in that sense.
I think let's proceed. Let's use our time more. We have only 3 days to go. Let's use it in a more productive way. Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that indeed allocation of conditional grants is important, yes, to the said counties, but there's need also to really see to it that this money is used appropriately. And Honorable Speaker, I'm just wondering, because we have about 1 or 2 months to go, so I'm just wondering whether this money will be used as it is supposed to be used, Honorable Speaker, because even when the money is disbursed, then there is also the process of procuring the agents who are going to do the work and the work being complete. I'm just wondering whether this money will be used as it is supposed to be used, Honorable Speaker, because of the short time that is there. There's need for the Auditor General to come also in place to ensure that he's hawk-eyed, to ensure that this money is used well, Honorable Speaker, because ideally, if the Senate was still on, the oversight role would be done by the relevant senators, and county government executives would come here to explain how the money has been used. But right now, when the Senate is not there, this money can very well be misused, and probably the accounting officers may not really come out clearly to say how the money was used. So there's need for the Auditor General to do a proper oversight on it. Because, Honorable Speaker, when it comes to issues of development, even in the counties, I want to say that the importance of partners cannot be overlooked, because partners come in to ensure that they are helping where the government is not able to help. So I want to thank the government of Danida. I want to thank Sweden. I want to thank World Bank for coming in to ensure that money is released. But even if this money is released, it must be, confirmed that the money is being used ideally well. Honorable Speaker, there are many times when money has been even sent to some of these counties like Northeastern. But sometimes you find that there's nothing to show, an indicator to show that there's progression on the amount of money that has been sent. Sometimes you find that there are still complaints that there are no schools, there's no water, and all that. And partners have always been sending money to these counties. So there's need also to ensure that even if partners are supporting the government, the money is used prudently and it is accounted for, so that if it's not accounted for, then Kenyans in Northeastern need to actually petition some of these issues when money is not used wisely. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that there's need to really ensure that the Auditor General makes an intensive follow-up to ensure that this money from the donors and from the government is used prudently when it goes to counties. Honorable Speaker, thank you.
Senator Shionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to support this motion or adoption of the report on the approval of the county government fund. Mr. Speaker, I just had 2 points to make, because we have heard much from my colleagues. It's important that when this money, whether it is going to be dispersed, the fund is going to be dispersed within the period that we are here or the coming government, it's important that this fund be used be used within the allocation that is, or the purpose that is supposed to be used for. And because the money is grants, we have discovered that many of the county governments have misused what we call grants, whether conditional grants or whatever they call it, but they have misused it. So I'm just urging that whether the government is this one or the coming government that we really don't know, and I can predict, and I don't want to say, that let that government utilize the funds appropriately. We have seen funds being reallocated to other use or personal use, or money being misused, just to be in simple terms, money being misused. And these grants, when they are being committed to our government, it is government money meant for the Kenyans, and for the purpose is supposed to be for the Kenyan purpose and not for personal gains. We have seen county governments colluding with even the account sections of their own government and misusing this money or relocating this money to their own use. And as my colleagues have said, even some making this money, maybe going for even making their own tours or travelings or whatever. So we just want to purpose this money. Senate is here because it wants the government or developments to be done in the county government. And we are here to protect the interests of our Kenyans. But we have seen many, even the tenders that are being given at the county governments through the grants that are being given. The nepotism is being practiced, where the family, only a family of that particular county government or a few friends or relatives are misusing these funds. And we are on the watch out. We are looking. And we are saying that leaders will not be there forever. And we are coming for you. And we are going to support those institutions that will be there. And the institutions that we have mentioned that they are not working. Then if they are not working, we are going also to work. Because we shall just list and shame those county governments, those county governors, whatever, that are misusing these funds, especially misusing them for their own personal interest, personal need. You find that somebody has built a mansionette of billions, and where the money is coming from, it is just from conditional these grants. People are turning grants. Grants are money that are given free by partners or donors, and you find that people are giving, even if they are giving these funds, They are just giving a portion, a small fraction of the money. And most of the money, we have seen it. And I am personally, saying that I have seen many misuse, and especially elected leaders. I want to call upon Kenyans who are going to do elections this year to sack those corrupt leaders who misuse the funds at the county government, who misuse the grants that come to them, and this money that belongs to Kenyans. The Kenyans that are being misused, let them be sacked. And being sacked, let them choose their leaders wisely, choose their leaders ably, and choose the leaders that are going to put this money into the right use. Because, again, I want to say, people have made interest out of this money. People are making loans and interest out of this money. And we have seen it. We are seeing it. People are making very huge income out of this money. Very poor people. We elect them. They come on the pulpit. They come on the seats, or they come on in these parliaments, or they go in those offices. They become rich within a day. And within a month, when they get these billions, some have never even seen these billions, but when they get these billions, they misuse it. I'm calling upon the institutions. If institutions are not seeing, we need to introduce motions whereby we, despite the fact that we impeach governors here, we shall start even impeaching members of parliament who are misusing these grants, members of the county governments who are misusing these grants, because it is not for their personal use. And I repeat, it is not for their personal use. It is not for their family use. This money, when a partner identifies a problems, when a partner identifies any issue at the county, that is when they allocate these funds. And it is important that the Kenyans, when we are going to vote, let us vote the right leaders who will make use of this money, so that these funds get right to the person who needs to use it in the right way, for the right people, for the right purpose. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Senator Langat Christopher.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me this chance to support this particular motion on the county government additional allocation of the fund. But I want to say, Madam Speaker, that if you visit our counties today, you can't believe. There are so many challenges affecting our counties, especially the bending bills and the lack of drugs in the hospitals. Though the greatest challenge is that even when there was funds in our counties, I was surprised when I was sitting in the CPI committee that bending bills have not been paid by the county governments right from 2017, 2016. So in as much as we would like to support these particular more allocations to our counties, we still have a lot of problems in our counties. And even I'm worried at this particular time of campaign that some malicious governors might end up even misusing these particular funds. Otherwise, I want to say that our counties are in their need for this particular funds, Madam Speaker, more so especially this particular time when there are a lot of challenges in our counties. There are some counties with a lot of challenges again, especially some have got no food at this particular time. If you go to those particular semi-arid region, county governments are lacking a lot of food and people are facing a lot of challenges. So I want to support it and also say that it is high time for this particular Senate that we debate strongly on the section of the oversight. This particular Senate is not directly in connection with the oversight activities in the field. Remember, the CPI committee, Madam Speaker, relies heavily on the Auditor General's audit report. And more often than not, this particular report from the Auditor General delays. And I was surprised when I was in CPIC, we were still dealing with issues of 2015, 2016. So you find out that the current Senate has not even fully oversighted on the money that we've been disbursing from this particular point of time. So I want to support it and say that it is high time for the next Senate that we reinforce the oversight activities of this particular Senate, especially that particular funding which had been set aside for the Senate to enable the Senate to oversight activities in the counties. That should be reinforced. I was also thinking that we spend much of our time in the Senate, unlike I was seeing the Senate of the Germany. They spend only maybe some few days in the Senate, but most of the time they are in the field, taking the oversight activities of their counties. I do think that most of the time we are here, and our work as the senators has become more theoretical than practical. And you find that the people in the village have understood that we are the agents of the oversight. And even during campaigns, when we were going around, they were able to show us several projects that have never been completed by the counties. So I want to say that in as much as we are supporting the dispersion of this particular money to our counties, governors should be prudent in making sure that they use this particular money not to support their campaigns at this particular moment, but to make sure that they clear the pending bills, make sure that they complete the projects that have not been completed. I support this particular motion, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Maura Isaac.
I was just putting it. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is being the third last day of the Senate, the third Senate of the 12th Parliament. I think it's important that we celebrate the great work that this Senate has done, including the bill that is before the House. This disbursement schedule, it's not a bill really, it's a schedule that we have been using as a tool to guide how much each of the counties has been getting. Madam Speaker, this Senate shall be remembered for the 10 weeks that we haggled here about the allocation. It was a very interesting moment because even my good friend Senator Farhia and I, who are in the Committee on Budget, there were some casualties there. I think I was the vice chair and the senator for Wajir, Engineer Mahmoud Mohammed, was the chair. And of course, the country was, looking at the Senate. There were very famous, statements that were made then. 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. And then we also asked the question, do you share money based on the number of people or the size of the dinner plate? And all of those questions that were asked. So this being the last schedule for this, term of Parliament, I think it's critical that we look at it properly. I bemoan the fact that this Senate has not been able to do 2 things. Is that number 1, there is no money for oversight for senators. This is not money to go for Harambes and whatever, but at least to have a senator being able to monitor what the billions that we allocate every year to the counties, knowing very well that the novelty of our constitution took away the division of revenue bill as a money bill. That was very deliberate, so that then the Senate is not recused from oversighting the very counties that it was created to superintend upon. And so therefore, Madam Speaker, that is something that we need to really look at. We had an opportunity to discuss this with the executive. There were some reassurances that were given that they have never seen the light of day. The elephant in the room is that members of the National Assembly have always feared that if senators were to be given money for oversight, they would be too powerful as to threaten their very hegemony that has existed since 1963. I want to say unequivocally that the Senate is here to stay, to play its active role for the benefit of society. And counties are the new frontiers for development, and therefore any move towards strengthening the very oversight that ensures that people get service delivery can only be welcome, if not already late. Madam Speaker, I want to say also without doubt that one of the things that I thought I would have been able to achieve myself as Isaac Mora is to see that we ring-fence some resources when we are doing this schedule, current this schedule in that regard, to go to special interest groups so that it comes from here. It comes from here that there should be some specific kitty every county, maybe at least a minimum of 100 million for women, for youth and persons with disabilities, so that then when they go to allocate monies at the county assembly, then that is really the first charge of sorts. That, I think, Madam Speaker, would have helped a lot, because the programming in various counties has not really targeted that. It's just small departments under the Ministry of maybe Social Services and whatever, the county executive committee member in charge of that docket, but then it has not really translated, as it were, into tangible benefits for such groups of people that are actually marginalized. And even when we have had, acts of county assemblies, they've not been implemented. And a very good example is here in Nairobi County. There is a Persons with Disabilities Act that is yet to be implemented. There's another one in Siaya. There's another one that I was just working with the governor of Vihiga, Wilbur Tichilo. May he be re-elected again if it's possible. People are progressive, but then because of lack of resources, then those ideas never get implemented. And as the Englishman said, you put your money where your mouth is. The other third issue that I would want to comment about this schedule is the fact that, on average, I think counties have continued to depend on the equitable share, the undesirable revenue, and they have not really been able to ensure that they have enough resources from their own revenue. And that is something that is not very good, because if you all are dependent on the center, then it becomes a critical issue. Madam Speaker, this Senate is supposed, I don't know whether it has happened, but maybe in the course of today or tomorrow, we are supposed to increase the debt ceiling to 10 trillion shillings. And the fact that then the first charge of any revenue so collected, about 1.6 trillion, goes to counties about 300 400 billion, and the projection of what we did here is for sure is guaranteed, because what the government did was to collapse all of the conditional grants. Then it requires that counties, as of essence, if their economies are growing, to also increase their kitty. It becomes a very sad reality that the counties collectively are not having enough money equivalent to the various, the defunct now local governments. So are we moving forward, or are we regressing? Are these revenues becoming the preserve of governors who we campaign with together, only for them to become overnight millionaires and billionaires? This needs to be put within the ambit of the law. And I think one of the things that, of course, should be done by the next Senate is to ensure that we have the on-source revenue bill. It has not seen light of day. That bill is very paramount. It was discussed, at the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. It actually went to the Council of Governors, but it has not really come to be passed, so that then there are very strict measures with regards to how that is been done, because it has been also a conversation we've had in all of the devolution conferences and the legislative summits. Finally, Madam Speaker, this schedule, I don't know whether it should be released 54 days to the general elections, and whether these monies will find their way to become campaign kitties. If it is done today, will there be exchequer release? We need to be careful, because going forward, we must also protect that whoever is going to take over the county governments will also find something in the coffers. We remember very well in 2002, when President Mwai Kibaki took over power, really, Madam Speaker, there was nothing in the National Treasury. And I also want to say, when the Kenya Kwanza government took over power, on 9th of August 2022, and I can see I have a lot of support from Senator Mohamed Haji Faki from Mombasa, that we shall find a granary, that is a treasury, full of resources to implement the bottom-up economic model. Madam Speaker, I support.
I now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to reply, and I wish to tell Senator Maura that that's just a dream, and dreams are normally just a dream. Some are realized, others are not. That one might not be realized in my view. We are waiting for Baba as the 5th president. Madam Speaker, I want to clarify something in terms of what Senator Olekina said about us, Kenya National Assembly and Senate arguing about the naming of a bill. The naming of the bill was not the issue. The issue was they wanted that bill to be one-off so that all the conditional and unconditional grants go under line ministries to be oversighted by National Assembly. And us in the Senate, we felt like that should not be the case because the mandate of the Senate is to oversight county government. And in terms of even, money going to the county, it would have been threatened because there was no, very clear methodology to disburse the funds, to allocate the funds. So that is why we were fighting with them for this bill to be an annual bill, just like the Kara and the Dora. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to make that clarity for record because it was said in this House that we were arguing on the naming whether it should be a conditional grant or it should be additional allocation. So that, I think that matter needs to rest there. Madam Speaker, I just want to thank the senators who contributed to this motion. Senator Faki for seconding me, Senator Cherargei, Majority Leader, Senator Pogisho, Senator Olekina, Senator Musuruve, Senator Shionga, Senator Dr. Langat, and not the least, last but not the least, Senator Maura. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the other issue that I wanted to talk about is that, in Kenya, I'm sure there are many people who are watching out there. Governors, like it was articulated by Senator Cherargei, threatening employees of the county government in terms of to ensure they support them or otherwise they don't have salary. Madam Speaker, I want to tell Kenyans that there is what is called Employment Act of 2007 that was even subsequently amended so many times that protects the rights of employees, whether in counties, in private sector, or in national government. So I'm telling people out there, please ensure you know your right and take these governors to court for breaking the law, because that is not what they are supposed to do. The resources to the county is not their own money. It is money as a result of taxpayers. And they are just one among the many, the governors are just one among the many taxpayers. So they cannot harass employees. So Senator Cherargei, I think you need to advise your people accordingly. And then I just also wanted to clarify that Senator Cherargei had said that we should not use our vehicles to go to the counties. I want to put in the record of this House, my car, I have had it for 3 years, has never stepped in Wajir, whether for official function or otherwise, because that is not why I was allocated that car. So I just want that matter also to rest there. And then, so every time I was going to Wajir, I was using my own personal car, because that had nothing to do with the Senate work. And then, Madam Speaker, and I think I am okay, Senator Cherargei, even checking the logbook or whatever, or even any record or anywhere, he will not find, I can assure you. Because I believe in doing what is right. And everybody should do what is right. And I think I want to also put that record straight. And then the other thing is, I just also want to clarify that additional funds and additional grants include conditional grants and unconditional grants. You know, conditional grants meaning that donors give us their money with a lot of conditions, including even the national government, if they wanted to implement something that they give through the county government, because it is a function that is devolved, then they also give either conditional or unconditional. But most of the donor funding and loans and grants normally come as a conditional grants allocation, and therefore if the counties were to use that money other than the specific object why they were set aside, then I think somebody needs to answer, and that the institutions that who have responsibility to ensure that counties do not use money according to where they are supposed to be, I think they need to meet with the full force of the law, and I think they need to be charged as criminal accordingly, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I think the way governors are going and the way things are happening, I think they need people like Raila Amolo Odinga, who is very serious with fighting of corruption. The Kenyans need to elect somebody like them to strengthen this governance. I beg to reply, Madam Speaker, and I wish to request, pursuant to Standing Order 61.3, the putting of the question to be deferred to a later date. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Since we cannot be able to process that motion further because of the numbers that we have, and as requested by the senator, that order is deferred to tomorrow. Honorable Senators, we now move to the next. Before we move to the next order, I call upon Senator Cherargei on behalf of Chair Sipike.
It's okay. Thank you. I don't know why they refer only to Mr. Speaker. They should. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 14 June, Tuesday, 2022. Volume 1, Report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the consideration of the audit reports of the following county executives for the financial year 2018-2019: Nyeri, Tharaka-Nithi, Murang'a, Kitui, Lamu, Siaya, Busia, Meru, Nyamira, Turkana, Makueni, Bungoma, and Elgeyo Marakwet counties. Volume 2, Madam Speaker, Report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the consideration of the audit reports of the following county assemblies for the financial year 2018-2019: Bomet, Taita Taveta, Kilifi, Nyamira, and Garissa counties. Volume 3, Report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the consideration of the audit reports of the following county executives for the financial year 2019-2020: 1. Narok, Kajiado, Kwale, West Pokot, Trans Nzoia, Turkana, Kericho, Kilifi, Machakos, and Kisii County. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion. Approval of the revised debt ceiling for the national government.
Chairperson, Select Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation, Mheshimiwa Fak.
Asante, Madam Speaker. The Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 was tabled in the Senate on the 7th of June 2022 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny. Madam Speaker, some of the key observations made by the committee are...
Senator Faki, you need to move.
I'm sorry.
You can just start again.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on the consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 laid on the table of the House on this Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday 14th of June 2022, and that pursuant to the provision of Section 50 subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Senate approves the amendments to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations 2015 Principal Regulations as effected through Legal Notice number 89 of 2022, thus varying the public debt ceiling to an amount not exceeding 10 trillion Kenya shillings. Madam Speaker, the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 was tabled in the Senate on the 7th of June 2022 and committed to the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation for scrutiny. Some of the key observations made by the committee are as follows, Madam Speaker. The ratio of debt to GDP ratio is currently increasing, which indicates that it may not be sustainable in future. However, the National Treasury is optimistic that the post-COVID-19 recovery program supported by the IMF will increase the rate of growth of the GDP, and therefore the ratio of the debt to GDP will begin to decline going forward. B, the economic factors, for example, depreciating shilling and increasing price levels, may pose challenges in the sustainability of debt, both in the medium term and in the future. This is majorly caused by external forces and perceived artificial shortages of the dollar. However, this is projected to stabilize since the country has enough foreign exchange reserves of up to 5 months import cover. The instability of the Kenya's debt accumulation process is not conducive for investors who prefer predictable business environment and are scared of sudden fiscal changes to address debt problems. Public debt is serviced out of government revenues, of which taxation is a major source of revenues. Recently, the country has experienced increased tax rates, partly arising from IMF conditions. Growing the debt levels too fast may eventually result to increased taxes in the future. Number E, the National Treasury has been slow in shifting to higher ratio of cheap concessional debt in comparison to expensive commercial debt. A high debt ceiling may give the National Treasury leeway to increase debt at a fast rate, leading to huge debts in the future. And the challenge of high levels of debt is the increase in vulnerabilities in the event of shocks similar to COVID-19. The realized deficit has always been higher than the projected deficit, and as such, the deficit may continue to increase other than decline. The size of the deficit is driving the growth of public debt, despite the fact that Parliament has the power to determine sustainable deficit levels. Madam Speaker, the committee further observed that, number one, the National Treasury needs to put in enough effort to build confidence with regards to public debt management and sustainability. It was noted that the mere fear of sustainability makes non-sustainability a reality. Number two, the limit of 10 trillion will be beyond the debt carrying capacity IMF and World Bank benchmark of 55% for Kenyan as at December 2021. However, due to the post-COVID-19 recovery program supported by the IMF, the debt to GDP ratio is expected to decline towards the debt carrying capacity level in the medium term. Number 3, the National Treasury committed in 2019 that the debt ceiling of 9 trillion will be enough after 2024. However, a number of unfavorable events have taken place that have led to the depletion of the ceiling. The events include the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine war and the resultant appreciation of the dollar. Number 4, the deficit in the budget estimates of 2022-2023 and the medium term shall not be fully financed, and development partners may stop funding ongoing projects if the debt ceiling is not increased. Number 5, the National Treasury has a number of policies aimed at addressing the macroeconomic pressures caused by the increased expenditure demands and promoting fiscal consolidation. This includes 1, plans to use more EPC, engineering, procurement and construction contracts, project financing. The EPC project financing method transfers all the risks associated with design, procurement and construction to the contractor. This type of contracts are efficient and reduce project costs, and are also attractive to lenders as they are low borrowing costs. Efforts to ensure that public debts are terminated, that include the enactment of the Public-Private Partnership Act 2021 that has enabled the undertaking of development projects outside the budget framework. A case in point is the Nairobi Expressway. All government projects currently undergo a feasibility study and considered whether they can be undertaken through PPP framework before they are factored in the budget. Number 3, automation of government procurement for all common user items and linked to IFMIS. The system is currently being developed by the National Treasury and will soon be rolled out to ministry and departments. This will ensure that no procurement is done outside the budget and therefore reduce government expenditure and costs. Madam Speaker, based on the foregoing observations and pursuant to Section 205, subsection 4 of the PFM Act number 18 of 2012, and the Senate Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation presents its report on the consideration of the Public Management National Government Amendment Regulations 2022 and recommends to the Senate that the Public Finance Management National Debt Amendment Regulations Legal Notice number 89 of 2022 be approved. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank my committee for the work they have done on these regulations, despite the fact that we are currently engaged in campaigns for re-election, some of us, and therefore the commitment that they have shown in consideration of these regulations at a record time, Madam Speaker, is very commendable. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank the Secretariat of the committee, your office, the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk, for the support that they have given the committee in dealing with these regulations. Madam Speaker, we have seen that several of the stakeholders who came to address us on this regulation were of the opinion that the government needs to do more in terms of reining on expenditure so that we can be able to live within our budget. Madam Speaker, most of the items that were addressed by the stakeholders have been factored in our report, and therefore move that this report be considered. I invite Senator Farhia to second the report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Farhia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to second. Madam Speaker, you know the debt ceiling we moved into 2019, but even then the economists had said we should have moved it to 12 trillion, and that we were going to come back before this Senate ended. as I sat in the Finance Committee, and Senator Maura, I think, is also my witness as they were telling us those things. So I'm glad that it never even moved to 12 trillion. It has moved to less. Madam Speaker, I think this government has had a lot of, global, during its time, the world facing a lot of global challenges. One of them being COVID. So because of COVID, the economy did not perform the way it should have performed. And of course, if you already took a loan, it waits for you to start paying back. So as much as the revenues fall short of the target, the loans are just on the register for them to be paid on a periodic period. Madam Speaker, the other reason why I support and then there is also the Ukraine happened. And I think if this Ukraine war continues for some time, I think the world is facing an economic depression with a lot of, impact in terms of poverty and how people will be recovering. Madam Speaker, as a committee, when we were looking at this report, there was a lot of submission in that if we don't increase the debt by 1 trillion, because we're only increasing by 1, we might fall short of repayments, and the economic impact of that is of a greater magnitude. And I also want to request my colleagues to support this increase, because remember, whether it is Azimio government or Kenya Kwanza government, whoever comes to power, they need at least a year to settle before they can discuss an increment of debt and other issues that are relating, because they still have a lot of administrative work to do to run government. So, let us save them the burden of ensuring that they, at least they have some funding to run for the first year. Then thereafter they can make their own decision, and that is. And then there was also a request to peg the debt ceiling as a proportion of the GDP, and that also did not materialize because whatever amount they were requesting also was below threshold. But but in terms of some improvements in terms of ensuring that there is an e-procurement that will happen, if I think that is implemented, and I think we need a right government to do that, I tend to think that a lot of the procurement will be more transparent, more available to the citizens, to ensure that we ensure that the leakages is reduced, hence the resources refocused, and hence much more money available to repay debt. But having said that, Madam Speaker, in this country there is a lot of improvement in terms of, especially on infrastructure, and I think there was a lot of criticism from our colleagues who are on the opposite side in terms of why are we investing in infrastructure. The other day, Madam Speaker, I saw them saying that in Kakamega, we will expand Kakamega Road by 1,000 kilometers. So, from criticizing why we are investing in roads where few people will use, to again pledging that we will expand some road network within Western up to 1,000 kilometers. I think let us, when we give people our agenda, let us be more consistent in terms of whether we say this today and then we say something different today. And then with the lack of, consistency, that brings a lot of problems, I think, in terms of when you look at people's manifesto, in terms of what they want to achieve. Madam Speaker, even compared to the other regime that was running Treasury, even the current the PS was telling us the other day that they have increased the institutional debt to 75% of our external debt, which means the commercial and other sectors are only 25%, and that was move in the right direction, because international institutional debts are normally much more friendlier in terms of interest rates, and also in terms of us having a longer period to repay compared to commercial debt. So some work has been done since we were discussing the same debt. However, this does not take away the fact that we need to tighten up our belt. We need to be more prudent in terms of ensuring that we use mechanisms like public-private partnership initiatives, so that private investors also contribute to the economy and the development of this country, and that people pay for those services, so that development can be achieved without necessarily increasing the debt. And I wish to thank His Excellency Uhuru Muigai government for passing that bill to ensure that at least even the private people have an investment avenue to ensure that at least people benefit. One of the opportunities that I see even within my own county of Wajir is like we have perennial power shortages. And without power, you cannot reach any development in terms of even, we have a lot of skills and heights in Wajir County, but we cannot set up a proper factory if we do not have permanent supply of electricity. One of the opportunities that I see for any investor for PPP, and I request the people of Wajir County to elect the right visionary leader to take us to that level, whereby the county government can even do a PPP with other people to supply power using solar system, so that Kenya Power is charged for the supply, and then that way, once the initial investor's money is repaid, then whatever is left as we continue supplying, as we know solar is free, but the initial investment is infrastructure heavy. So once that is done and the owner is repaid fully, then the county government of Wajir can have the residue to continue benefiting and charging Kenya Power for the supply, so that the town can be adequately supplied for power. But we can only do that if we elect a leader who is not only visionary, but who can fight corruption and put every shilling to prudence. And that money now that will be generated as a result of supplying power can form a very, continuous flow of funds to the county government to further develop that county. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply, I beg to second, and ask our colleagues to support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Senators, I now propose the question, which is that the Senate adopts the report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation on the consideration of the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations, legal notice number 89 of 2022, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 14th June 2022, and that pursuant to provisions of Section 52 of the Public Finance Management Act, the Senate approves the amendments to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations 2015 principal regulations as effected through legal notice number 89 of 2022, thus varying the public debt ceiling to an amount not exceeding 10 trillion shillings. Senator Cherargei Samson Kiprotich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, the issue of principles and framework of public finance has been envisaged under Article 11, 12 of the Constitution is very clear, Madam Speaker. When you look under Article 201 on the principles of public finance, one of them says the following principles shall guide all aspects of public finance in the Republic. And the key one is that there should be openness and accountability, including public participation in financial matters. Madam Speaker, there is a low confidence among Kenyans on the management of public debt. Kenyans do not have confidence because the managers and the Ministry of Treasury and the government has not done due diligence to tell Kenyans as to why in 2019 we were raising the public debt to then at 9 trillion, Madam Speaker. And now we are moving to 10 trillion. I remember I and Calland, 7 senators, we did vote against the raising of the public debt at that time, public debt ceiling, Madam Speaker. So we need to be honest, Madam Speaker, in terms of confidence. I've looked at the report, and you look at even under Article 203 on equitable share and other financial laws, it says any provision must be made. That is Article 203 1B. Any provision that must be made in respect of the public debt and other national obligations. So the government, Madam Speaker, has not been fair enough to tell Kenyans the issue of public debt management. That confidence has not been given to Kenyans. So even as we debate on raising the as we debate as a Senate on raising of public debt to 10 trillion, we don't have confidence of Kenyans. Because, Madam Speaker, when you look at and I've seen the report, a preview or a snapshot of the report prepared by Senator Mohammed Faki as the chairperson, and I'm happy, Madam Speaker, I did mentor him very well when he was my member, of the Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights.
There is a point of order from Senator Faki.
Speaker, Senator Cherargei was sworn in as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya last year. In 2020, yes. He was sworn in the same year with my son. So he cannot mentor me. Thank you.
Senator Cherargei.
At least, let me not say I not mentoring. I did show him how work is done. And I'm happy looking at the report that the committee has done. They have done what they could, but looking at the circumstances in the country, Madam Speaker, is that I've looked at one of the issues is depreciation shilling and increase in price level. Price levels may pose a challenge. Madam Speaker, what we need to tell Kenyans, if this debt ceiling rises up, the cost of living will go up. You can see today, EPRA will be disclosing the pricing of fuel in the country. It will go up. Everything in this republic, the school fees will go up. Everything, the cost of doing business will go up. Because we must generate the revenue, Madam Speaker, to even as a country we have a deficit budget. The budget of 3 trillion plus is in deficit, Madam Speaker. And to finance that budget, we must look at the revenue that is generated locally and that we need to generate and pay off this debt, Madam Speaker. And the road to Shanghai is real. When we said here 3 years ago that the road to Shanghai is unstoppable, it's now real because the debts that we have as a country. And I've seen the reason this committee has given us is they're telling us, you know, the reason we need to raise a trailing, because the last time it came to the Senate in 2019 and I voted against it, we were being told it will sustain the country up to 2024. But now we are being told because of the COVID and because IMF has agreed with us, and Madam Speaker, some of us are worried because it looks like we might be going back to the structural adjustment programs of the 90s. And I know, Madam Speaker, having then you can be well versed into those days. These are structural adjustment programs that they want to take us back, Madam Speaker. And therefore, even as the government of Kenya Kwanza takes over, Madam Speaker, I can tell you one of the biggest challenge, Madam Speaker, that we'll be facing as the government of Kenya Kwanza, God willing, if William Ruto becomes the President of the Republic of Kenya, with the permission of Kenyans and God willing, the biggest struggle that is how to restore the confidence of the public on the public debt and how to manage the public debt. And that is why the Treasury must be honest to the Senate. They have never. I remember, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, we have been fighting to get Treasury to come here to tell Kenyans what they are doing to manage the public debt, Madam Speaker, and to tell us about retiring the expensive loans, Madam Speaker. They are taking commercial loans as opposed to concessional loans, Madam Speaker. The Treasury has failed, has not been open to engage the Senate and Parliament on the public management debt. I hope, Madam Speaker, in Kenya Kwanza government, I hope, because some of us will be part of it, God willing, we must be honest on how we manage the public debt as per the principle, Madam Speaker, of Chapter 12, Article 201, on openness and public participation in terms of public management, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the second point I want to make is on the issue of sustainability of the public debt. We are being told we are on the red. We are being told let us borrow because IMF has approved. There are so IMF loans. We are being told, Madam Speaker, that there is also of ensuring that, but what we are not telling Kenyans is that the fact that we will raise the ceiling of the, Madam Speaker, and I hope the chair of delegated legislation is listening to this keenly. I know they did relocate the port to your county, Madam Speaker. It will be interesting to see how, when the port will be returned to Mombasa and how your people will behave in Kajiado, Madam Speaker, is that we are not telling Kenyans that when we borrow the public debt ceiling to go up, it will mean taxations will go up. The taxations will go up because we need those taxes. Even the value addition that we are talking that in future, we need to reduce on basic commodities from 16% to 8% will not be possible. Even in terms of doing business, Madam Speaker, when you are doing constructions now, a few years ago, the cement was 550 shillings. Now it's approaching 1,000 shillings. The cost of other materials, even building the steel and many others, Madam Speaker. You know, even Pwani Oil, I don't know whether it is in Mombasa County, the other day was closing shop. And you know the sad reality, Madam Speaker, is the Competition Authority of Kenya is sleeping on the job. The Kenya Revenue Authority, Madam Speaker, are sleeping on the job. You know why KRA is sleeping? It is because their business is when they get you have not paid your taxes, they just want to close you down. They don't imagine that if your business is closed down, where will they get their revenue in the next financial year? You remember President Suluhu Hassan, Madam Speaker, the President of Tanzania said in one of the forums and told Tanzania Revenue Authority, how do you go and close that business, yet the next year you need that revenue? When you close that business, it means there will be no revenue that will come. And even today, as we talk, the KRA has closed down the Keroje Industries, Madam Speaker, in Nakuru County. So if we want to improve in terms of collection of taxes, we must come up with friendly policies by KRA. KRA should stop behaving like they just, you know, when you are dealing, you know, Madam Speaker, and you are the senior in our practice, is that you don't treat taxation matters as criminal. There is a way that they handle as opposed as to criminal, Madam Speaker. If somebody does not pay, you need to encourage Kenyan civic education. Why, when you have your small kiosk somewhere in Kapsabet, in Mosoriat, in anywhere in this republic, Madam Speaker, why is it important to pay taxes? Why are many Kenyans doing what we call tax evasion? It looks like the KRA is not friendly to ensure we collect more revenue, to ensure we offset. And that is why we need to study Kibaki. When Kibaki left office in when Kibaki came to office 2002, 2003, the revenue that was collected in Kenya was approximately around 200 billion. By the time he left office in 2013, Kibaki government was collecting around 900 billion to 1 trillion. There should be something that we need to borrow from Kibaki government, Madam Speaker, to ensure that even as taxation goes up, and we need to be honest, Kenyans, when we raise this public debt ceiling to 10 trillion, high taxation, high cost of living, everything will go high. But I'm not meaning there is a presidential candidate who normally called Wajakoya, who wants to smoke something that you go high. Even those will go high, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the third point that I want to make is on the public-private partnership. I agree with this one because we need even to encourage counties to ensure that we work on the Public-Private Partnership Act. I don't know whether that has been enacted and signed into law, Madam Speaker, so that our counties do not, it has been signed to law. Yeah, so it's informed me it has been signed to law. I think we need to use this Public-Private Partnership Act to finance some of these mega projects. But I'm disappointed that they have used a wrong explanation, wrong example, Madam Speaker. This Nairobi Expressway, when it was conceived during the Kibaki government, we were told it was around 30 billion. Now, are you aware, Madam Speaker, this Nairobi Expressway is going to 81 billion. Even to make it even painful, the contractor of Nairobi Expressway is demanding 9 billion to renovate the old Mombasa Road, Madam Speaker. And I thought when you are doing contract, and that's how corruption thrives, by the way, Madam Speaker. There is no any other name of corruption, such because they are now demanding 9 billion. The lower Mombasa Road, now they leave the new expressway. It is in pathetic state. The drainage is poor. There is no renovations that have been done. The size of the road has been reduced because you have built beams and pillars. Yet the contractor has audacity of demanding additional 9 billion, Madam Speaker, to renovate the road that they are the ones who destroyed in the country, Madam Speaker. That's how you lose public money. There is no any other explanation, Madam Speaker. And that is why the Ministry of Transport must tell the country, will this project run to 100 billion? Because if it's now 81 billion, they demand 9 billion, Madam Speaker. I think we must be very clear. And by the way, Madam Speaker, on a lighter note, somebody was sharing on the social media, when you look, everybody is on the traffic jam on the old Mombasa Road. There is no one on the expressway. It shows you that the economy is doing badly. Because if people cannot pay in tolling, Madam Speaker, it means, and even the design, the other day we raised here, the Nairobi Expressway, there are no exits within the city. It's only Museum Hill and a roundabout at Bunyala. But any other within the CPD, Madam Speaker, and it is very critical. Because as the Speaker of the House, Madam Speaker, you might be flying into the country and you are rushing to the House. Where will you exit? You will go up to Museum Hill and there is traffic. So, Madam Speaker, this example that the committee has used is an example that should not be used in future. Finally, on the e-procurement, I agree with the mover the mover, Senator Faria, that we need to encourage e-procurement and ensure that when tenders are awarded, money must be there and be linked with integrated financial and management information system. Because the reason we have a lot of pending bill that is approaching 120 billion, for example, Nandi, Madam Speaker, Nandi County Government has 2 billion pending bill. That is what we do even the national government has was pending bill. There are many Kenyans, Madam Speaker, that are working on the street, that they have gone bankrupt, that they are under depression, that they have stress because the mistake was taking an LPO to do a county project or a national government project, but they have not been paid. And they have not been paid, Madam Speaker, up to date. We must agree that the e-procurement will become a solution in terms of award of tenders at national government and also at county government so that we deal with this monster called pending bills. And you know, when they took LSO and LPOs to the banks continue to levy interest on those loans that they gave to finance a county project, Madam Speaker. We have counties, they started in 2013. Even whenever you go, including Mombasa County, you get somebody who's still being owed by Mombasa County 10 years down the line, Madam Speaker. They have borrowed money against their houses, their land. They have given out collateral, the securities, Madam Speaker, to get those loans. But we must agree as a nation that it is important that we move to the e-procurement and ensure that the e-procurement, Madam Speaker, is linked to integrated finance management and information system, IFMIS, to ensure that tenders can only be given out when there is money, either by the county governments or, Madam Speaker, by the national governments, Madam Speaker. So looking at the report, my position still remains the same as I did in 2019. I will also do in 2022, that there is no need to raise the public debt ceiling because the cost of living will go up, taxation will go up, the cost of living in Kenya will go up, and even the cost of fuel will go up. And it means when taxation goes up, for us farmers, if taxation goes, the fuel price go up, we cannot farm, the farm inputs go up, Madam Speaker. I'm being told, by the way, I have heard, and I was shocked that the Ukraine and Russian crisis has led us to where we are. I don't believe so. I think there is more reason that we must be told what really happened, Madam Speaker, so that when we are bringing such issues, Madam Speaker, because of course we agree that the reason now we are buying 6,000 shillings per fertilizer. And I'm told, by the way, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I saw the CS of Agriculture. You know, this country, it is comedians. The Peter Munya was saying in Kisii, you know, he's the current Minister of Agriculture. He was saying in Kisii that when he takes over, when Azimio, which of course they will not take over power, when they take over as a Minister of Agriculture in the Azimio government, he will reduce the price of fertilizer from 6,000 to 2,500. Why does Munya doesn't do now? Why doesn't he reduce 2,500? And he's the Minister of Agriculture. So who is fooling who? I want to agree with Senator Faria when he said we need also to be open with the country. So that when you are saying this, you must confirm with this, Madam Speaker. But I want to confirm to you, when the Kenya Kwanza government under the leadership of William Ruto, Amason Kingi, Alfred Mutua, Musalia Mudavadi and Senator Moses Wetangula takes over, and the rest of Kenyans, those are some of the issues that must be sorted once and for all. But when the issue of public debt ceiling will come up, Madam Speaker, I will still continue to vote no, because I think as a country we must be disciplined. We don't borrow from, is it from Peter to pay Paul? No, we cannot operate to that. And I think my brother Senator Ledama, being one of the wisest and reasonable senators, will agree with me. And by the way, I hope to see him in the next Senate. I know he has a lot of heavyweights fighting him, but we hope amejipanga, because it is not easy. But I'll speak with those further remarks. I will decide when the voting comes.
Senator Mwaura Isaac.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. From the outset, I would want to say that I oppose this increase of the public debt from 9 to 10 trillion. Because, Madam Speaker, how can we borrow the whole of our GDP, our nominal GDP? This country, we have been lying to each other in terms of how much is the wealth of this nation estimated to be. And it is very interesting, Madam Speaker, because when I was in the National Assembly around the year 2014 or 15 thereabout, it can be confirmed, we increased our public debt ceiling from 3 to 4.5 trillion. And the understanding that we had that time, I was in the Budget and Appropriations Committee, is that then it would help the country to move forward. It didn't. Then we increased the public debt ceiling from 4.5 to 6 trillion. And then from 6, which we did from here, to 9 trillion. Now we're increasing by another trillion. And when you look at the big picture, it means therefore, within a record 9 years, we've increased our public debt from 3 to 10, if this were to pass. A whole 7 trillion. It's not acceptable, Madam Speaker. What we want to ask ourselves is, what have we done with the 7 trillion? Look at our budget. Currently, every year, we are collecting about 1.6, 1.7 trillion, depending. It's not even 2 trillion. And we are having a national budget of over 3 trillion every year. That is to mean sooner than later, we still have to increase our public debt ceiling. And it also means we're living way beyond our means. Now, they say that the reason why we have ballooning wage bill is because of the devolution. But how much are we sending to counties? It's less than 400 billion. Even if you are to take that money off the budget, it does not justify why we have a 3 trillion budget. That is not something that we have to live with. What has happened, Madam Speaker, is that successive governments, be it the Jubilee coalition government or the current handshake government, because it's the handshake government, they've not been bold enough to just have discipline on how much we are spending. We have to live according to our means. We have to cut our clothes according to size. Indeed, the population has increased. We are now 50 million strong Kenyans or thereabout. But even then, that does not justify the fact that Kenyans give a birth to 1 million children every year does not justify the increase in expenditure. And the austerity measures that we have seen the National Treasury trying to do have targeted the people areas, the expenditures that touch the lives of the common wananchi, to the detriment of the various aspects that, of course, make them feel closer to government. What we are seeing is an increase in expenditure around infrastructure. And it is gobbling up a lot of public money, and yet it is not properly regulated. How much is a kilometer of road costing? How much are these huge public projects costing? Is it really feasible to have an 80 billion road? I used it the other day, and for sure, I was surprised from the airport to Museum Hill. It's only 10 minutes. But is that really the solution to the whole of the Nairobi province traffic problem? I beg to differ. So when we have now austerity measures, they are targeting, Madam Speaker, areas that then would mean, for example, if you are providing milk to children, if you are providing sanitary pads, if you are providing sunscreen lotions, those ones are not the issue. They can never be the issue. The issue is we have to look at the elephant in the room. Now, look at how our mathematics look like. Is that we are spending about 900 billion on development expenditure. All of this is externalized debt. And I heard my dear sister, Senator Faria, talking about the new kind of loan. It cannot be any better. Even if loans were only 25% of our debt stock, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are off the hook. Because how did we end up doing commercial loans? It's because we were cheated that our economy was rebased by 25%. From 7 to 10 trillion. Madam Speaker, this increase of public debt ceiling by way of regulation is another way of confirming that even when the KNBS projected that our economy has grown to 10 trillion, that we are borrowing everything. It's actually some form of rebasing again. And so what does that mean to the common wananchi? It means that then government will have a higher appetite for loans. It means that then the local banks and lenders will be more willing to lend to government than Senator Musuruve, who may want to start some commercial apartment somewhere. It means that anybody who has finished school and doesn't want to go to employment cannot get a loan from their local bank or credit facility. Is that the way to grow the economy? And when you look at what government is spending money on, is number one, there are so many people who are being paid, and that is giving us about 700 billion in terms of wage bill. But also, more poignantly, the issue of the developments that are not accruing a return on investment on the taxpayer. And that, I think, is a tragedy of our moment, because we were not able to differentiate the separation of the National Treasury, as it were, and the Ministry of Finance and Planning. That, I think, is something that we did that was not supposed to be the case. And if you look at the constitutional architecture, it is actually envisaged that they should be different. so that there is proper oversight and separation of responsibilities and powers. Madam Speaker, this issue of public debt cannot be left to regulations. It should be a matter of law that we should be amending a statute to increase our public debt. That is why, as you can see, it is coming at the latter end of the 12th Parliament, the tail end of the 12th Parliament. Yet, even now, we don't have the numbers. It's a serious public debate. People are now trying to survive politically. Yet, this is the one thing that I would want to say without a doubt that the Jubilee administration has gotten wrong. We were not bold enough to reduce the number of state agencies, the 247 of them. We were not bold enough to recalibrate the budget to accommodate the county governments and cede ground and cede power to the Schedule 4 of the Constitution, and as per the Schedule 4 of the Constitution, so that the roles of the county governments should not continue to be done by the national government. So right now, when you look at the promises that are being made, like the 6,001 per year, per month for 2 million or so families, it is going to require another 200 billion or so for it to be implemented. Is it really workable in such a kind of a budget? It will only call for further borrowing. So this public debt, as someone may have actually put it, only by 1 trillion can only make this financial year and the next financial year. After about one financial year, we still need to borrow. In fact, projections are that if we do not make significant, radical changes in the next 18 months, we are going the Greece way, Madam Speaker. So this is a very serious public debate. And those stories that we are told about countries like Japan, that they have borrowed over 200 times of their economy, but they produce. I mean, everyone here drives a Toyota or has driven a Toyota at some point. But we, in this country, we are more preoccupied with the politics of the day. There is a promise, for example, we hear even our competitors saying that a country will only grow if you have a ballooning or a burgeoning private sector. So be it. But it cannot grow when it is being crowded out by government over borrowing for nothing. Because right now, it's not even clear, Madam Speaker. These monies that we have borrowed, what is a clear-cut separation between recurrent and development expenditure? The same PFM law requires that 70% of the monies should be recurrent and 30% should be development. A cursory look at how the collective cumulative budgets of counties are doing is that most counties are doing 88% recurrent and 12% development. That is why if you are to supply any monies, if you are to be controlled by any county government, for you to be paid is a problem. Today alone, I got a call from Mr. Oluoch, who did some engineering services at Kiambu County Government. He's not been paid for over 2 years now. And it's just a paltry 1.9 million. So we are going to face the same problem. And I think if Parliament was to stamp its foot down and refuse to increase the public debt ceiling, it would make the government to reduce the budget. And if it reduces the budget, it would therefore mean we must now reprioritize that which we require to do, because Kenya is not coming to an end. When you look at the budgeting problem, it's because we do it every year, but very few programs, Madam Speaker, are able to be completed within the cycle of a financial year of government. Very few of them. So if you are to do what was practiced under the Kibaki administration, the medium-term expenditure framework, MTEF as it was called, it was a 3-year resource envelope planning cycle. That way you are able to reduce the problem of pending bills. You are able to ensure that you can properly procure in good time, and you don't have to worry so much about the end of the financial year, where a lot of resources are misused, so that those government expending agencies are able to ask for more from the budget rather than actually live within their own means. And also, the consultative process that used to happen in the budget making process has since become academic. People must feel that when they speak to their government, that there is some form in which their needs are actually responded to. But that whatever projects that end up being implemented are not just an elite capture thing, where those then who are able to push for that which will give them kickbacks and make them millionaires and billionaires overnight is what ends up being in the strategic plans and the work plans of various ministries, departments, and agencies. What happens to the CIDPs of various county governments? We don't hear about those conversations anymore. And Kenyans know what are their priorities. So, Madam Speaker, I strongly believe that Parliament has got a very great moment at this point in time. It's only Senate that is actually in session until Thursday, to refuse to increase this debt ceiling, so that whatever happened in the last financial year can happen in the next financial year, and then people will start now adjusting here and there. We don't need this, we don't need this. And I hope and believe that the Executive Order number 1 of 2022 shall reorganize government in such a manner that it will reduce the recurrent expenditure that is currently gobbling up all of the 3 trillion that we are borrowing. Madam Speaker, we have refused to put in place the Loans and Grants Council. That is actually a statutory body that would have ensured that we know exactly where we are in terms of the public debt. Public debt register has not been made public. Can you imagine? And every time when you ask about it, nobody wants to answer that question, because there's an elephant in the room. What did we borrow for? Where did that money go to? Who are our lenders? Are these syndicated loans monies that are siphoned out of government and then put into offshore accounts and then borrowed back into the same government? My heart tells me that is the case. It is immoral for money to be siphoned out of government, then it finds its way back into commercial banks, then the same banks borrow into the same government. That is highly incestuous. It is actually enslaving the very people who are toiling out there to just put up some few people in plum government positions, ostensibly to protect their rights, but they end up looking at their kith and kin and their own self-survival and perpetuation. That is the morass that is killing our own entrepreneurial spirit. Yet Kenya is a robust country that is able to feed its own. Kenya is a country that has enough for everybody. But if we do not look at this issue of public debt ceiling, it's going to affect our country. In 2014, Madam Speaker, I'm on record, I warned that in 10 years, there will be no country to run. I was told I was waxing eloquence, that nothing would change. But we must speak the truth. We must speak the truth because, can you imagine in 1980, 12th of November, Koigo Amore in the National Assembly warned about that dam that killed so many people, the Solai Dam. So even now, let it be on record that whatever trajectory that we are being told to do through this legal notice is wrong. It's the wrong trajectory. That we have to stamp our authority and to show the country that we indeed are the vanguards of their own future. That we are not just accomplices, because somebody will say, oh, please pass this, because tomorrow we'll not be able to release monies to you people for CDF and for the other emoluments that we share here in Parliament. As I conclude, because I can see the yellow line there, I want to say this unequivocally, that Kenya requires patriots, people who have the best interest of the country in their hearts, and that with our economic model must be relooked up. It must be interrogated. We must ensure that the people at the base of the pyramid end up not becoming handout seekers, which is a left-leaning political ideology, to people who are producers, people who are going to add into the kitty, not who are going to remove from the kitty. And that is why I find it very novel that the bottom-up economic model, its aim is basically to ensure that whatever business ideas people have, they're actually commercialized and marketized, that they find their way into the market. That also, if we can have priorities by county and allocate about 4 billion for mega county projects around manufacturing, around value chain addition, not just value addition, value chain addition, we will be able to actually spur economic growth and have more to the kitty. We are challenged by the OECD countries who are able to collect up to 40% of their revenue in terms of their GDP. But here in Kenya, we were doing about 15%, but that now is going down because even that nominal GDP value, we are overborrowing it. And when someone says that our economy has grown up to 12 trillion, it's just a way of managing so that we are able to get more money to borrow for areas of the economy that may not necessarily be productive. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very important debate, but I want to strongly oppose the increase of the public debt ceiling from 9 to 10 trillion. I thank you.
Senator Inima Gertrude Musurube.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice to this debate. And I want to thank the committee led by Senator Faki for bringing in stakeholders and even looking at the intensive issues that are on the floor of this House, because they made an observation as a committee. And one of the observations they made as a committee is that in 2019, the debt ceiling was 9 trillion. That is in 2019. But the projection was for up to the year 2024. So, this was anticipated that that debt that was there of 9 trillion was going to be enough for the country and ensure that the smooth running of the country. But as disaster has it, COVID pandemic came in, and we all know the impact of COVID pandemic and what happened. Everything slackened. When it comes to economic, socio-economic sectors, they all came down. When it comes to businesses, they all came down. Look at the tourism industry, how it came down. Look at the education industry, how it came down. All industries actually came down. And it's not only in Kenya that things are slackened economically. It is also in other parts of the world. Look at also what happened, the Ukraine war that was not predicted. Actually, these are disasters that were unforeseeable. And Honorable Speaker, with all these disasters, it is actually expected that the dollar appreciated. When you look at, when you compare the Kenyan shilling and you compare to the dollar, the Kenyan shilling has actually become too weak. And Honorable Speaker, it must be known that every one of us, if you are to do any big project, that is, you are not stealing from anywhere. You must be having loans. You cannot do a big project without loans. Even when the economy goes down, you have to look for a way in which you can actually get a loan and do a big project. And if you have one big project, it becomes very easy to get a collateral, even from the bank, with one project that you have made in order to continue. So in essence, what I'm saying is that yes, the Kenyan debt ceiling is high, but if it continues to be high, chances of having investors coming in here will be very difficult. But Honorable Speaker, when it comes to getting a loan, public debt, yes, it should not go beyond 10 trillion. But even if we are saying that it should not go beyond 10 trillion, there's need for a mechanism to be put in place to ensure that there are strategies of ensuring that the debts, public debts, are actually repaid. So if strategies are not put in place, proper strategies to ensure that if there are big loans, then the big interest need to be repaid. If there are loans, also low loans, they need to be repaid. I think when it comes to debt, management of repaying debts is very important. If loans are just taken without a proper strategy of repaying debts, then it becomes a harrowing experience. Now we have to remember also that when it comes to paying public debts, the common man one feels the pinch very much because it's paid through taxpayers, meaning that if the debt is too high, then it means that the taxes will go high. And it is very clear that Kenya is one of the countries that have very high taxes globally, and this the Kenyans feel it so much. So there's need to have a strategy put in place to ensure that if a loan is actually taken, if the debt ceiling is high, then at the end of the day, then the strategies put in place will be, predictable and will be effective to ensure that we have a sustainable way of paying off the debts, Honorable Speaker, because when it comes to taking debts, there are many things to put into consideration. First of all, the risks of taking the debts. And even apart from the risk, then the risk of even repaying the debts and the failure to repay the debts, because if the debts are not repaid, there are consequences, and the consequences may not be very good for the country. So there is need to ensure that even as the committee is recommending the 10 trillion debt, there is need also to propose that these debts must be paid in such a way that the Kenyan, the common man, is not really affected, adversely, because we are fully aware that yes, unusual circumstances happen, like COVID. No one knew that COVID was going to even reach Kenya and have this negative impact on us. So in as much as I support this motion, my proposition would be that there's need to look at the beginning and the end of the debt so that there's a sustainable way of repaying this debt without harshly affecting common wananchi, because all of us have feel the heat of high taxes and repaying the debt. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And that is my thought on this motion I support.
Senator Olekina Ledama.
Madam Speaker, I thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And let me begin by saying that in other circumstances, I would not be here supporting the increase of the debt ratio to, or rather the debt ceiling to 10 trillion Kenya shillings. But Madam Speaker, when you look at what has been happening in this country over the last few years, in fact the last 2 years, this country has been hit by a very, very serious pandemic. Last year, Madam Speaker, we were here arguing on the need to increase the debt ceiling to 9 trillion. I think last year or the year before, 2019. And there was a big heated debate. And in 2019, Madam Speaker, if you look at our debt our debt ratio to GDP, we're at around 58.6%. But by the end of this year of 2022, our debt ratio to GDP would be at around 70%. So the first question you ask is, why? And the only simple answer that I can give to Kenyans out there is because of two factors. Number one, because of the COVID pandemic. It is not quantum physics, Madam Speaker, that COVID has had a very serious impact in the growth of our economy. The second most serious issue, Madam Speaker, is what is happening now in Ukraine. Madam Speaker, apart from being a senator, I'm also a farmer. And I import wheat or animal feeds from countries like Ukraine, which is where everyone imports from the world. I import from Uganda, I import from Tanzania. But what I was paying, Madam Speaker, for a kilo of soybeans 2 years ago was only 60 shillings. In fact, some cases I would even be very lucky and I would pay 56 shillings. And Madam Speaker, today I am paying at minimum 120 shillings. That is double. And if you look at what I'm selling milk at, it's still almost the same price as I was selling 2 years ago. So I think it is imperative, and it behooves us, Madam Speaker, to be able to demystify these things to the general public, for them to know as to why we are here talking about the need to increase the debt ceiling in this country, either to increase or not to increase. And we need to make it very basic so that Kenyans can be able to understand out there. If you go to Narok County, Madam Speaker, right now, the area of Olchorro, Mau, is the most productive area in this country. We have a lot of wheat farms, but we have no roads. And if the public want a road, it then calls for the national government to spend money to be able to build that road. Where are we going to be able to spend the money if the national government does not have money? Today, we want better hospitals. How are we going to be able to have better hospitals if the government does not have money? Then it begs the question, Madam Speaker, and this is what we should be demystifying for the general public to be able to understand, is that, is debt good or bad? Earlier on, when we were talking about, I think, the budget policy statement in this House, Madam Speaker, the proposal by Treasury was that government should borrow locally. And the effect to that borrowing locally is that it would make it very expensive for ordinary folks like us to be able to borrow money from the local banks, because the bank will find it much better to lend money to the national government because their money will be saved. So the question that we should be putting out there for people to understand, and what we should be asking for people to answer, is that, is debt good for a country? And what does debt do for that country? You know, I've heard my colleagues from the other side of the aisle arguing that the expressway, 27 kilometers, was built through debt, which is not true. That is a private-public partnership. And that is what the committee, and I thank Senator Faki for really taking the time to try and say, what is it that we are doing, what is the national government going to do to try to correct and to try to make sure that at least we can manage that debt, is to encourage national government, county government, to engage in PPPs, public-private partnerships. Because that road is built, it is helping us. Today, upon my arrival from outside the country, it took me 7 minutes to get to Wayakiwe. It makes me more productive. Madam Speaker, when debt is used correctively, it can improve so many things. One is the standard of living of the people of this country. Everyone needs a good road. If we borrow money and we build roads, it makes it easier for us to get to where we're going. So those are the things that we should be discussing, because we know for a fact, Madam Speaker, and what Kenyans ought to know is that what has been ailing this economy is corruption. So when corruption didn't exist, and it continues eating in every government that comes in, the economy will be in shambles. So I want to reiterate and say that by increasing the national debt, it will encourage, Madam Speaker, the government to build roads, to build bridges. It will also encourage most of our constituents, when they see us, they say, Mheshimiwa, we don't have electricity. Please get us electricity. They say the last mile was brought to only these villages, which is the truth, Madam Speaker. If you go to Narok County, you know, there are certain areas which is predominantly one ethnic group that lives there, that even a simple grass hut house has electricity. But on the other part, which is predominantly by the people who are the indigenous of that area, there's no electricity. So what we are now calling for is that it's proper management of debt. Because if the debt is there, it can be able to help this country ensure that the people of Shangwe, the people of Lolgorian, the people of Mao, the people of Antasegara, and also the people of all the little villages have electricity. But today, Madam Speaker, last week I was in a place called Olchorro, and some of the demands that the locals were asking for during our campaign is that we want electricity. So ordinarily, what would I do? I would call the ministry, I would call Kenya Power, and the answer would be, we are happy to do the work, but we have no money. And here we are today, where we are sitting down and talking, and our colleagues are saying, no, we cannot borrow. We will not approve any money to be borrowed. Then where are we going to get money to be able to give to Kenya Power to buy transformers to send to those people who want electricity? So, Madam Speaker, I think it's about time that we separate. We look at what will help this country develop. If you want good things, Madam Speaker, you have to be prepared to pay for it. I mean, no doubt about it. You know, after a pandemic, the best type of economic model is really the demand-side economics model. You know, and with proper debt, Madam Speaker, with good roads, a good standard of living, people will spend money. Government will be able to collect taxes and pay. In fact, people will not be in a rush to be able to save money because they know whatever they spend, they can be able to continue earning. If you look at our neighboring countries, and this is where it now begs the question, Kenya is the largest economy in the East African region. By the end of this year, I'll repeat, our debt to GDP would be about 70.3%. If you look at our neighboring country, Tanzania, it is about, 49%? But the question that we need to ask ourselves is this: what is our GDP? If you look at our GDP, Madam Speaker, per capita, it's about $1,500. If you now look at other countries, it's different. If you look at our economy, we are dealing with an economy of about 98.9 US dollars in billions US dollars. Is that the same with other countries? So really, we really have to be able to demystify these things. Right now, Madam Speaker, and I was telling the young students from Kajiado who are here, who are asking questions about the crisis that is happening in between Loliondo and Kenya, and I was telling them that they have to know what is happening in their country because they are concerned about their land. And the issue they raised was that now, because we live in a group ranch that has not been subdivided, what will happen tomorrow? Will the government now come back? When the government is trying to borrow money, will it lease our land out to Arabs? Will it be able to lease, and then we'll fall, victims? And our problems will be the same as the ones happening right now, with our brothers, the Maasais in Tanzania? And the answer to that was very simple. I think if we are able to manage our debt, if we are able also for them to understand so that they can contribute, then we'll never be put in a situation where our land will have to be excised out to be given out to other foreigners so that the country can continue getting money. So really, I think it behooves us, and I really want to encourage all the elected senators here who will be required to give a vote on this very, very, very important thing, not just to spend the time out in politics and, trying to confuse things out there and saying they want to raise the debt ceiling so that they can use that money for campaigns. No, it's for us to be realistic. National Treasury seldom sends money when the money is supposed to be sent. Madam Speaker, if you look at our cash disbursement schedules that we discuss in this House, even earlier on, the one that we are talking about in terms of approval, it is quite seldom that the Treasury will disperse that money because the money is not there. Now, to the other very, very important issue in terms of management, my colleagues earlier on raised the issue of, CADPs in the county governments. I think as we go into this election, it is imperative that the constituents understand the importance of their participation in the CADPs, in the county integrated development programs. Madam Speaker, are pushing for a more collaboratory approach between the national government and the county government, in line with the programs that we are developing. There's no doubt that every county will have its own budget.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa. Equity. Karibu member.
It's been 7 days. I'm scared for her.
I'm afraid everyone in the whole world knows that they can't find you in your mansion in the north. But they'll find you here. Wow, you're pretty good with the ladies.
Huh? Congratulations, Your Majesty, Your Highness.
Please inform Echo that I wish to speak with him right now.
I suggest you leave.
But no matter how much it hurts, I have to get you out of my head and of my heart.
But what worries me is that if my daughter reconciles with her husband, how will she explain to him that she sold the house that he gave her without his authorization?
I don't think it's a good idea after what Nuria did and how she threatened my sons.
My dad and my mom are getting divorced.
You're wasting your time. I won't let you file for a divorce.
And I am never going back to you. Nor will I ever let you come back in this house.
I will choose my decisions carefully if I were you, Ines.
Baby, where are you? I hope you're feeling lonely. Can't sleep without you. They say I'm not the perfect man for you. They say we're not meant to be, but I can't let you, won't let you, not let you go. I don't need another lover. I don't even have to bother. I found it in you. And now I feel like, oh, you're the reason why I'm thinking I don't want to smoke all those cigarettes no more. This is what I get for wishful thinking. I shouldn't never let you enter my door. To the one around, to the one that I feel love, to the one I lakini kwako narejea. Tunaandamwa na majukumu geto, wengi wakisema tutatoka geto, wengine wakisonga tunabaki geto. Baba, nina imani nitatimiza ndoto, nirudishe mkono nibariki geto, nibariki geto. Oh no, niking'ang'ana na jua kali, wengi waniona misifai, lakini Mungu wangu we haulali baba. Wendo kusema na kutenda, wendo na bariki tu, wendo na inua tu baba. Wendo kusema na kutenda, wendo na peana tu.